Internet, YouTube, hello. There seem to be escalations in the experience we're having now from the beer virus, the extreme responses that have no substance in actual reality. What we understand to be real and what we are told is real is separating itself. This is an experience that I'm having, the separation between what we are told is real and what in fact appears to be real is more than ever separating. I mean, this has been what is understood to be propaganda, and it goes back to probably as far back as you want to go. You'll always have people giving us a bunch of hooey in order to take advantage of. We're kind of innocent in essence. I mean, people act within a range. What could be like you see people who are really aggressive and powerful and strong, and then you have people that seem to be weaker and more vulnerable, and so there is a kind of range of understanding in each person. One is called innocent and kind of sacred almost, and then a profane kind of personality, if you know what I mean. Meaning that a person, like, let's say you think of a Hell's Angel biker as a degenerate, depraved character, or in this case, you might replace the Hells Angels with politicians who are doing really nasty things right now. These ranges of activities in a person suggest a certain quality of person. What am I getting at? My title says feeling overwhelmed. And this is something within our daily functioning that has an impact. The more sensitive and, I'll use the word, vulnerable we are, the more impacted we are by the extreme to the other side, that profane side of our nature. Human beings act within a range, act within something that, even, let's say, in films, you have the good guy and the bad guy, and there's always this inner attachment we have to the good guy. Well, generally, unless you're a psychopath, you're attached to what is being presented to be good. And what comes out of our experience now, when we're seeing the extremes unfolding more than they have in the past. They've always been there, this undermining of us in terms of telling us the world is a certain way, but really we know it isn't. But we go along with it, we comply because we're within a system, what we understand to be what I've talked about as civilization. We're in a system, we exist within an almost prescribed, why do I say almost? A prescribed way of acting that is habitual, that we call civilization. And what is that civilization based on? I listened to an excellent presentation by Joseph P. Farrell today, who talked about the events of Washington and the storming of the Capitol. I must say that was rather pathetic for a storming of the Capitol. It's another theater event. It was a theater event, and as Farrell pointed out, the mob was not outside going in, but was already inside carrying on with their nefarious business. He calls his presentation News and Views from the Nefarium, and appropriately, he has identified the mob inside. The politicians are the mob, not the ones coming in. But just as a sideline, it's again such a theatrical event. It was so orchestrated and not enough police there. Everybody knew it was going to happen because the Trumpster had warned it was going to happen. He said, "Come on, people, let's do this thing. Let's storm the Capitol." And how can a social platform, Twitter, ban the president, the highest office in the land? The person who represents the highest office in the land, called the president, is is barred from making comments to the people that want to hear what he has to say. How is this possible? This is insane. This is madness. This is what I'm saying. Escalating. What we think is going on and what really is going on is separating itself to such an extent that we all know. I said this in my last video as well. We all know. Now here's the crux. Here's what I'm getting at. Intent. The meaning behind something. What is going on? And that is to make our vulnerability work for them in order that we should comply, we should submit, we should resolve to just allow everything to unfold as it is meant to be by some plutocratic gaggle, cabal that is behind all of this destabilizing of fundamentally what I say are psyches. Yes, the world as well. It's like maybe there will be food shortages. Maybe there will be a war. Maybe there are going to be upheavals and upsets within our experience of existence. But here's what I find to be quite important to understand. What I've probably not said directly, I'm going to say it now, and that is this feeling of helplessness to an extent, and feeling vulnerable, and feeling exposed with what it is we understand, but the tendency is for a person to deny because it's much easier to go along, and we see where that led 1933 Germany, the capitulation in a vulnerable population. There were many reasons why people embraced this character, this Hitler character, because he was offering a solution to this sense of feeling lesser or vulnerable. And here's my answer to this feeling of vulnerability or this sense that we have in ourselves that we're overwhelmed in some way. And that is to just accept that we actually know what is happening. Maybe not in detail. We may not know the nefarious mechanisms underlying, like, for example, this Zach Hubbard is talking about gematria and showing through numerical the equations that make up names and the dates that are associated with ritualistic behavior. This is fundamental in our civilization, that ritualistic behavior. I don't even need gematria to recognize the ritualistic behavior that happens over and over. And I must say, I like this guy's analysis of how he shows this ritualistic behavior is actually documented and to maybe even to some extent predicted in the numerical values. One can, to some extent, say, well, this makes sense that this happened or this is going to happen. But what my concern is, what I understand within this framework of destabilization that has always happened by this group of slime buckets, these people, these leftover, the swamp creatures that, first of all, and Joseph P. Farrell, yeah, that's his name. What he referred to were the Venetians, that group of people that were chased out of Rome by the barbarians, sort of 400 something, and they fled into the swamps of Venice. And the barbarians said to themselves, we're not going to go into those swamps because we don't want to be eaten by all the mosquitoes. But the Venetians put up with the mosquitoes, and the barbarians didn't eradicate them from the face of the earth. They said, let them exist in the swamp. It was a big mistake not to wipe them out completely. So these Venetians rose again like a phoenix, and as Farrell says, created Amsterdam. The bankers, these Venetians over like by the Middle Ages, 1000 or something, had reestablished themselves. They had taken whatever they could abscond with from Rome, the wealth, the gold, whatever they had. They established their system of plutocracy and oligarchy, again, through the banking system in Amsterdam, and then they went to the city of London, and then they went, he said, to Washington, D.C., as we see the mob who is controlling what is understood to be Capitol Hill. And this is a sequence of events that he says underlying our civilization are these swamp creatures, these slimy bastards that manipulate and control things. And we all know this. We all know, that's what I'm saying. We all know this. And the catastrophes that have occurred, like Fukushima, we know how absolutely horrible this is. I was not thinking about the nuclear monster breathing down our necks in March, on March 11, 2011. This is something that hit, when that date occurred, within hours and certainly within days, I realized the significance of this event at Fukushima. So I knew. I didn't know the specifics, but I knew. I had something, I internalized something, and I was actually struggling with this on such a level that I went into association with other people who understand this as well, and it lasted for a while. There was some good work I feel that I was a part of in terms of exposing this, but it came to its natural conclusion for me in the sense of the way I was pursuing this. So again, I haven't said my point. The knowing part of something, is essential to accept and recognize. So when quite often I have conversations with people that are very sensitive and vulnerable, and they repress that sensitivity because they feel helpless, there's nothing we can do. The conclusion is that this is so overwhelming. It's sort of like coming to a fight with a knife, and your opposition has a machine gun. It's this feeling, or a bazooka, or a nuclear bomb they'll drop on you. So coming to a fight with a knife and having your opposition with a nuclear bomb is rather, it's it's crazy. So this is the feeling underlying this helplessness. It's like as a metaphor. I want you to take this as a metaphor. So this feeling is so monumental within me, and I know in other people as well, this helplessness. However, here's the counter. Here's what I understand. I've gone through this in many videos about making sure that there is a substantive part to each and every one of us in terms of our calling, in terms of something that we feel very solid in. And it takes time. I mean, this takes time. I mean, the effort to create a history for ourselves that we can relate to in terms of a meaningful history. Like, this is important for me to do, that kind of thing. Whatever it is that we are called to do, it's something that we recognize in our, some earlier, some later, some never, obviously, and many people never. But okay, whatever that is, I've talked about this in my videos. Go back to my videos. I even title it like that, about calling and all that. But what I understand, and I hope this helps some people, because the helpless feeling is rejecting the things that we know. So in a sense, before you stand on barricades or start the revolution or rush into the Capitol, what has to happen is a conviction, an inner conviction about something that I know. And I know that what is happening is severe and serious, even though I feel, like I say, Fukushima. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I made my attempts in order to alter the path that we're on. I mean, it's illusions of grandeur. I mean, we cannot change anyone's ideas or thinking or feeling. You cannot make anybody feel anything they don't want to feel. So to say, wake up, and threaten people or try to seduce people, it may work a little bit, but ultimately it has to come from an inner knowledge. And I'm saying to you, what I am convinced about is that the act of knowing and accepting that what you know is the first most crucial step. It's actually a liberating step. Even if you are incarcerated, you're punished, you're in a cell, you're in solitary, you're by yourself, but you hear many stories about people who've existed in these extraordinary, extreme circumstances, how they emerge with a balance still, like they're not totally insane, crazy nuts, like people that are in institutions and they can't think in any kind of way. There's no balance to them. Imagine people who've come through extraordinary, extreme circumstances and are still functioning. It's the reason they are is because they have accepted something that they understand and know, and don't shirk away from it. They're not afraid of it. They're not going to say, oh, well, no, Hitler is a great idea because the country is in trouble and we have to follow these irrational things that he's doing. Some of them were very rational, but most of it, like lock them up, lock them down, doesn't make any sense. And when you know that, you can't reject it, because that's when the dysfunction happens and the vulnerabilities increase and you're prone to do all the things you're told to do. You won't resist. So once you know, and resistance is not futile. I'm saying resistance is not futile. So the knowing, the accepting that you know is 90% of the change within ourselves and ultimately out there as well. That's how it works. That's what I've decided. So all those people who feel like, oh, I'm not doing anything, I'm older, I'm sitting in my chair, I can't get up, I have pain, or younger people who say the system is too huge, it's overwhelming me, I say the way you overcome this inner feeling of helplessness is by accepting that you know what's wrong and you understand what's right. And you learn more and more what's right. I am learning every day the rightness of things. I understand the wrongness of things. I understand the rightness of things because it's conscience. Conscience becomes extremely important in this knowing. So that's my thought, considering that, you know, people are coming out and they're now saying, oh, the big reset, and all the things that are unfolding, the lockdowns, the increase, this will escalate because people are withdrawing into their shell and accepting what they're told. They're wearing their stupid mask, shit face things, and it's like it doesn't work. It hasn't worked. For a year, it hasn't worked. Oh, cases, more and more and more. It hasn't worked. But hey, double down. When something doesn't work, you double down. That's the insanity part of it, right? You do the same thing over, expecting a different result. The civilization we're in is literally that, doing the same thing over for thousands of years, expecting something to go differently. That's what we're in. This is the mind fuck. This is the lockdown in our own brains that we're inside of. And the way to get out of it is to say, I know. And you don't have to do a thing. You don't have to do a thing. You just have to say, actually, I know. I know this is going on. And whenever circumstances arise that we have a choice, that we can exercise choice, this is something that is very crucial as far as I'm concerned, that when we do exercise choice, we choose the right thing because we know. But if we convince ourselves we're overwhelmed and we don't know, well, we're never going to make the right choice. So those are my reflections. And I've talked about people that present us with the facts. It can help. I agree, it can help. I mean, we look out where our eyes to the world. It's kind of like we're allowing a video or a TV or a radio to be the eyes of our world, not in our own life. Let us experience life from a primary level, not looking through someone else's lens. I mean, this is ultimately what we need to do. But of course, we're influenced. I've always said, as a painter, I'm influenced. I'm influenced by all the things that go on around us, around me. So we cannot avoid the manipulation and the things that are being done to us. And some of it is very sophisticated, very subtle. The complexity of some of the things going on, as I've referred to Zach Hubbard and his gematria, and I love Mr. Cat-Eye. He hasn't done much lately, but he's a much more intuitive sort of approach to this ritualistic behavior. He uses the numbers, and they're connected to Kabbalah, they say, to some extent. But my understanding of Kabbalah is a lot more complex than a bunch of numbers making sense in terms of ritual. Yes, that is part of it too, but Kabbalah is an inner enlightenment that occurs when we accept the fact that we know. We may not be able to write a book about it, but knowing doesn't require any action whatsoever. None. And this is the feeling that a lot of people, or this is the thing a lot of people get stuck on, that you have to exercise yourself in the world out there. That will happen. But the first step is the acceptance of the knowledge that we have of what is actually going on. And I think the world will change as more and more people are able to accept and realize that what I've always said as well, the world is not what it appears to be. And that leads to a conviction and an understanding and a knowledge that leads us into the direction that we need to go. I have faith that this will push me in the direction that I need to go. If I follow this path, this understanding of knowing, I will go the path that I need to go. And always remember, what we pivot on is the conscience that we have. It's innate. It's something that it's gifted to us. It's something that the omnipotent being gave every human being, possibly all living creatures. I don't know whether it extends to the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom, but all I know is that I have a conscience, and I know you have one as well.